Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarech, we will be continuing on in the Rambam's Hilchos Yesodei Hatorah, the laws of the foundations of Torah, in the Rambam's book of Mada, his book of knowledge. We are currently up to Perek Sheni, the second chapter, and we will be continuing on in the Rambam's philosophical chapters, discussing Ava and Yira, love and fear of Hashem. And we'll start with Halacha Aleph. Halacha Aleph. Ha'el hanichbod v'anoira hazeh. This exalted and great God. Mitzvah la'ahavai. Uli yira mimenu. There is a mitzvah to love him and to fear him. Shenamar v'ahavta eis Hashem leikecha. Like the pasuk says, and you shall love your God Hashem. V'namar, it also says, es Hashem leikecha tira. You shall surely fear your God Hashem. Halacha Beis, the Rambam asks, V'heiach yihaderech la'avasai v'yirasai. What's the proper way to attain this love and fear? And it's important to remember that the Rambam is talking about a very specific type of love and fear. In general, we hold that there are two different types of love and fear. You could love somebody or fear someone because of that which you are going to receive or not going to receive. So, for example, you love somebody who's going to give you a present and you fear somebody who's going to punish you. But there's a second type of fear and love, a higher level of love and fear. And the Rambam is specifically talking about that type of love and fear here. And that is a love and fear because of the person's greatness, who they are. And that's what the Rambam's talking about. And he continues, when a person looks around and he sees the wonderments of the world, the great creations, and realizes the amount of chachma that it would take for somebody to create such existences, right away when he recognizes this, there's going to be this great praise and a great desire for somebody to come and learn who created this, where did this all come from? Like David says, I thirst, my soul thirsts for Hashem, who lives. The Rambam continues, right away the Rambam says, after one recognizes all these things, he immediately is going to recoil in fear and awe, and he's going to realize that he is just this small, lowly, dark creature, and he's going to realize that all the knowledge that he thought he had is just this wavery, limited level of knowledge compared to the ultimate knowledge, the perfect knowledge of Hashem. Like David says, like David says, when he realizes his name, he's going to ask, why did you recall these people? And because of this, what I said, the Rambam's asking, why would I include these ideas, these philosophical ideas, into a sefer of halachis? Seemingly, this should be left for the Rambam's Meir Nevuchim or his other philosophical works. Why is it that the Rambam felt the need to explain these things here in this sefer halachis? And the Rambam's answering that kidei shiyu pasach lemevin la'ahoiv as Hashem. Because based on these ideas that I'm about to explain in the following halachas and in the following chapters, it's going to fulfill that understanding of the need to love Hashem. Like our sages of righteous memory said, that through this love, you're going to recognize the person and you're going to say, he is the one who created the world. What the Rambam is saying is that we know we have a mitzvah of Ava and Yira. And he's saying that to attain the level of Ava and Yira, to fulfill this mitzvah, you are required to know these things, required to know these philosophical ideas about Hashem, so that you could fulfill the commandment to love him and to fear him. Halacha Gimel, the Rambam is going to start to explain certain creations of Hashem. Kol mashe bara HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olamai, nechalak l'shleisha chalakim. All that Hashem creates is split into three portions. The first one, mehem biruim shehem mechubarin migailam v'tzura. The first category are the creations that are connected to a form and out of matter, and they are being created and they are expiring at all times. And the Rambam uses the classic four categories that we use, doibam, tzomeach, chai, and medaber. For example, a man or an animal or vegetation, or different types of metals, they're made out of matter, they have a form, and they're being created and are expiring at all times. The second category, umeihem beruim shehem mechubarim migoylam betzura aval eina mishtanim miguf leguf umitzura letzura k'may harishayim. The second category is a type of creation that is contained to a type of form and matter, but they don't change from body to body and from form to form like the first group. Elatzurasam kavua begolmam la'olam be'eina mishtanim k'may elu. Rather, they stay in their form forever, and they don't change like the first one. Vehem hagalgalim ba'kichavim shmehen. An example of this would be the Galgalim, which we said were the spheres, which we're going to speak about more tomorrow, and the stars that are located inside of these spheres. And their matter and their form are not like other matters and form that we could contemplate from seeing in this world. The third category, there are other types of creations that, although they have a form, don't have any matter. And they are the angels. These angels don't have a body or a corporal being. Rather, they're just a form separated one from the other. Halacha Dalid. The Rambam asks, so then what is what we see in the Navi? That, for example, there's imagery that an angel is a ball of fire, or that the angel has wings. The Rambam says this is all just imagery and parables for the prophecy, because they don't have a body. Like we see from the pasuk, the pasuk speaking about Hashem, that He eats fire, and we know that that fire is not anything but a parable. And just like the other pasuk says, that He made the angels wings. In a literal sense, Hashem doesn't eat fire, and neither does the angels have wings. But for the imagery of the Nevuah, they use certain worldly descriptions to explain certain phenomena going on with the angels. Halacha Hey, the Rambam asks, Uvema yifardu hatzurais zay mizai. We said in the previous halacha that the angels are separated forms one from another. So the Rambam asks, what is it then that separates each angel from each other? They don't have any bodies. The answer is that they're not equal in their existence. Rather, each angel is lower than the angel above him on the plane. And not only that, but he exists from the energy of the angel above him. Each one above each other, and they all stem from the power of Hashem, blessed be He. And this is hinted in the words of Shlomo HaMelech, where he says that the guard is this one above this one, implying that there are different levels on a plane directly taking its energy from the one above it. Halach Evav, the Rambam clarifies, this is what we just said, that each angel is higher or lower than the other angel. This isn't a higher or lower placing, like somebody who sits above his friend. Rather, the Rambam uses the imagery of, let's say you have two friends, and one is a bigger Talmid Chacham than the other. This one's considered higher than the other. And like we say that the cause is greater than the effect, the Rambam is saying that each angel has a purpose and has a koyach, and that koyach is greater than the one lower than him, and there is an angel above him that is greater than him, and he gets his koyach from that above him, and he gives koyach to the angel below him. Halacha Zayin, the Rambam is going to explain the different types of malachim. These malachim mostly stem from the Nevuah of Yecheskel, which is expounded upon in the Gemara in Chagiga, sometime referred to as Maisa Merkava, which we're going to discuss at length at the end of the Perek. But to start, Shinoi Shemas HaMalachim, there are different names to these angels, Al Shem Ma'aloisam Hu, and each one is called its name because of its level of loftiness. Ulefikach Nikrayim, and this is why they're called Chayis HaKodesh. The first level of angel is called the Holy Chayis, and that's because they were the first created beings, and therefore have this special level of being called HaKodesh. V'heim L'mayla Min HaKol, and they're the highest level of angels, and the next level below them is the Va'oifanim. The Oifanim which is the source of the Galgalim that we're going to speak about more tomorrow. Ve'erelim, and the next one are the Erelim, also known as the Great Ones. Va'chashmalim, and the next ones are the fiery beings. Usirafim, and the next level is the burned angels. Umalachim, and then the emissaries. These are the malachim that Hashem sends with specific tasks. Moving on, we have Elohim, the judges. Uvenei Elohim, and the sons of those judges. They serve similar tasks, but the Bnei Elohim are on a lower level than the Elohim. Ucheruvim, and the Kruvim, which translates as kings, which can be compared to the small faces of the Kruvim that were on top of the Aron. And finally, we have the Ishim, the men, which is the lowest level, and therefore is similar to the men, similar to human beings. And these are the people that actually interact with human beings. And the Rambam continues, Kol Eilu, Asara Hashem Shenikroi Behem Malachim. All of these beings can be called, categorized by the general name Malachim, angels, Al Shem Eser Hamailas Shalohem Heim, and they all have their name based on the 10 levels that they themselves possess. And this level that they attain is not because of their own greatness, but rather because of the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He Mailas Hatzuris Shenikrais Chayis, and He Hashem is higher than the level of even the highest of the angels, which we call the Chayis. Lefikach Nemar Benevuah Sheheim Tachas Akisei, and since the Chayis are the highest level of angels, they're the ones that in the Nevuah are explained that they are below the Kisei HaKavod, below the throne of God. Umayla Asiris, and the Rambam now explains the lowest level. He Mailas Hatsura Shenikrais Ishim, which we called Ishim, men. Veheim Hamalachim Shemedabrim Im Haneviim Bin Irim Lahem B'Mar Hanevuah. These are the angels that speak with the Nevi'im, with the prophets, and they're perceived in the Nevuah as this type of being. Lefikach Nikro Ishim. That's why we call them men. Shema Alosam Kroiva Mimailas Dasa Adam, because their level is similar to the level of knowledge and understanding of a man. Halacha Ches. V'chol Hatsuras Ha'elu Chayim U'Makirim Es Habayre V'Yoidin Oisedea Gedela Ad L'Ma'od. All of these forms are living beings, not in the sense that we usually identify someone as a living being, aka the ability to live or die, but rather in the true sense of the word live, which means being vitalized through godliness. All these beings understand Hashem, and they have a great understanding of His knowledge, called Tzura v'Tzura Lefi Ma'alasa, each one on their own individual level, like Kefi Godlai. Now the Rambam throws this in, not to their form, aka that none of them have a true understanding of Hashem, but they all have a potential to understand Hashem on a higher level based on their reality. Even the highest of the levels can't understand the Creator in His full reality, only a short and minute understanding based on His reality. Aval maseges v'yodas yaser mima shemaseges v'yodas turas shalamat mimeno. But the reality is that each one possesses a knowledge and understanding of Hashem that's greater than the being that is below them. V'chein kol maila umaila ad maila asiris gam hi yodas habayre deya she'en koyach b'nei adam hamechubarim migoylam v'tzura yachol lahasig v'leida kemaisa. And each one possesses a level of understanding until the 10th level, the Ishim. They also possess a level of understanding that is greater than the understanding of man, because the reality is that a man is confined to matter and a body, and therefore it's impossible for a man to reach a level of understanding, even to the level of Ishim, to the level of this male type of angel, the men type of angel. And the Rambam finishes off the halacha by saying, and none of the above mentioned, neither the physical Adam or any of the levels of Malachim, know Hashem the way he knows Hashem, because he is the only one who can know the true power and the true everythingness of himself. Halacha Tes, the Rambam is now going to speak about the idea of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem's knowledge of himself. Kol hanimtsoim chutz min habayre mitzura harishoina ad yatush katon shia betabur haaretz. All of the existences except for Hashem himself, from the first created being all the way to the tiniest mosquito that finds itself in the depths of the earth. Hakol mikayach amitoi nimtzu. They all exist because of the reality of his truth. Ulefishahu yoidea atmai umakir godloi betifartoi va'amitoi hu yoidea hakol ve'in davar nela mimenu. Since he knows himself and he understands his greatness and his exaltedness and his truth, by default he knows everything because there is nothing that is hidden from him. Halacha Yud, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Makir, Amitoi, V'Yodei Oiseh Kemo Shehi. Hashem knows himself, and he possesses knowledge the way that knowledge truly is, V'Eino Yodei B'Deya, Shehi Chutz Mimenu, and his knowledge is not somehow created by some foreign existence. When we think we know something as a human being, really it's something that we either experienced or learned or saw from something else. But Hashem's knowledge doesn't come from any other being. And the Rambam calls this our knowledge and us not being one. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'datoi v'chayav echad mikol tzad mikol pina. But the Creator, Him, and His knowledge and His existence is all one from any side or any corner. Because if you were to say that Hashem was to live a life and He was to know knowledge the way we know it, then what we would have many gods. Because all of these existences would be on a supernatural level to the point that they all contribute to the existence of God, and therefore they would all be gods in themselves. And that's not the reality. Rather, from every side and every corner, it is all united, it is all one. Therefore we say, we could say that God is the knower, He is what is known, and He is the knowledge itself, and it is all one. This reality is not within the human ability to verbalize, and not in the human ability to listen to, and not for the human heart to understand it. And what we're saying here is that we are human beings, and we are limited to a body and to physical reality. And therefore, even if we were to think and to think and to think to the deepest of our levels, we will still be thinking in this reality where our thoughts and our body are separated. But God's thoughts are God. And therefore, we would never be able to get to a level where we would understand this concept. Now, based on this halacha of the Rambam, you could ask a question. If we're going to say that God is the knower and the knowledge and the known, we're defining Him as something. And every definition, by default, is a limitation. So by saying that God knows, aren't we limiting God? And there are many answers to this question. We're going to take the approach of the Alter Rebbe in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe explains that since Hashem is Kol Yachol, He has the ability to do anything, even saying that God is only infinite is a limitation of God. And therefore we need to say that God could both be infinite and also be finite. And now in the translation of God's finiteness, He also has this level of perfection, this level of knower, knowledge, and known, and that materializes itself in the spheres, the attributes, and that's the finite level of God's existence, and that is what we're talking about here when we define it as knowledge, known, and knower. The Rambam continues, the life of Paroi, v'chei nafshecha, and the life of a soul. But we don't say chei Hashem, the life of Hashem, the life of a soul, and the life of Paroi are not the same as the life of Hashem. Ella, what do we say? Chai Hashem, as God lives. She'ein haboidei chayav, shnayim k'moi chayei agufos, hachayim oikechayim malachim. Because the Creator doesn't, quote unquote, live like the life of a person in a body, or even the life of the malachim like the angels. Lefikach einay makir haberuim v'yodim mechamas haberuim k'may sha'anu yodim oisam elamachmas atzma yedam. Therefore, He doesn't recognize creatures or creations the way that we do by seeing them and realizing them. Rather, Hashem recognizes the creations from Himself, from recognizing Himself. Lefikach, therefore, why? Because since everything is a complete unity, so by God recognizing Himself in perfectionness, He also realizes all His creations, because His creations are just an extension of Himself. Halacha Yud Aleph, we're going to finish off by discussing what we said before, the Ma'aseh Merkava, Dvarim Elu, Sha'amarnu Be'inyan Zeh, B'shnei Prakim Elu, all the things that we just discussed in the last two chapters, K'may Tipa Min Hayam. They're just like one droplet in an ocean, and not just any ocean, but an everlasting ocean. And there's much more to say and explain on these ideas. And all the fundamentals that we discussed in these two prakim, that's what we call Ma'aseh Merkava, which is alluding to the prophecy of Yecheskel, which is expounded upon in the tractate of Chagiga. Halacha Yud Beis. Now the Rambam explains that the early sages made a decree that one should not expound on these ideas except to one individual person alone. And this person that you explain it to needs to be a very wise and understanding person. And even this wise person, when you would explain these concepts to him, you would only give him an outline and the sort of bullet points on the ideas. And then he would go and he would have to think upon it and he would have to internalize them and he would have to come to his own conclusions and to realize the depths of the concepts. And these concepts are very deep concepts. And not everybody could appreciate the depths of these ideas. And based on these ideas, Shlomo HaMelech used a parable to explain these secrets. Kvasim lilevushecha, the wool of your garments. And the way that our sages explained this parable of Shlomo HaMelech, Dvarim shehein kivshayne shel olam yu levushecha, that these secrets of the world should be like a garment to you. Kloimar, which means to say, lecha levadcha, that they're only for you. And don't explain them in public. And Omar, and another explanation, we say, and another pasuk says that it should be for you alone, and not with anybody who's with you. And Omar, and another pasuk that alludes to this concept, Devash v'cholov tachas l'shaynech, the milk and honey that is under your tongue. And this is how our early sages explained that pasuk. That the things, aka these ideas from the Ma'aser Merkava, that are like milk and honey, they should stay under your tongue, meaning you should not go and explain them to others. And with that, the Rambam finishes Perek Beis of Hilchos Yesodei Torah.